Well, this is a little bit different. Welcome to a Friday night live stream. The time is 5 minutes to 7. The playoffs is tonight. Not being in the way of the playoffs. We'll be going until basically my laptop runs out of battery. Coventry Sunderland tonight at 8 o'clock. But yeah, I just want to do that because first of all, big day in terms of press conference, and I think it's probably worth chatting about. In all honesty, I'm live on YouTube, which is a platform I just don't use enough. In terms of my own channel, I probably should use it more, and obviously Twitter as well. I want to talk about today's conference. It had some significance behind it, and let me just double check my mic is connected. It is. Okay, that's perfect. So this is something I'm going to be doing a lot more going forward as the Wi-Fi just starts to bug out again. If I'm in a really bad position, I'm going to move elsewhere. So if anyone can let me know how I'm coming through, I might just double check on my own channel, my own, just see how I'm coming through. Let's see. I've heard Marco is not supposed for choice. It's pretty great. Open video. Let's see. I've heard Marco is not supposed for. Oh, it's coming through. Okay. All right. I'll stick with it. Billy, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your comment. So yeah, I'm thinking of going live throughout the whole summer. So much to talk about across the summer. Fixture release day, like basically what's the same last summer. I'm at a position where I want to live stream maybe 4 or 5 times a week for about an hour every sort of evening or whenever big news drops. I think there's going to be a lot that goes on this summer. I feel like I say every summer, I feel like any Fulham fan or football fan says this sort of thing every summer, but I just want to get on the sort of train of getting into live streaming again, because it's just a really fun way to talk to people, to plug work, and to have the whole community sort of talking about Fulham. So the reason I'm here live tonight, this evening, is because Marco Silva's press conference today, I felt there was a bit of significance behind it in terms of what he could say, in terms of what's happened in the week, links and stuff like that with Saudi Arabia and with Al Hilal. He was asked about it. I was told before I arrived, a little bit later than I usually do, I was told that basically each broadcaster, which was Sky, PLP, who didn't actually ask about it, and there was a Saudi Arabian broadcast company there as well, which obviously coincided with the question that they wanted to ask. They only got one question each regarding Marco Silva's contract situation. Not contract situation, I suppose his contract situation, his actual situation, club. The way he answered those questions was similar to the way he's answered them before, but I think he gave a little bit more gravitas to it, saying that right now I'm at Fulham Football Club next season. Obviously, the quote did some numbers because it's a significant thing to say. It's a significant thing to put out there. He was then asked about would you manage outside of Europe in your career, and he wouldn't rule it out. And people could take that as like, oh God, that means blah blah blah. He's not ruling anything out. I think it just means that in a managerial career, as much as Tony Khan has said he wants to Marco Silva to Fulham, he will not be at Fulham forever, and that means that the managerial careers have lots of twists and turns, and there's definitely scope for him as a young manager. He is young in a context of a manager, that he will have opportunities to manage in the Premier League, to manage still at Fulham, to manage Saudi Arabia, outside of Europe, inside of Europe, and if he's not closing the door on that, because no one would if I got to work somewhere else, or I got asked to, would you ever consider doing it, because of life and making a living and broadening all options, you aren't going to close down. You say, I would never say that I would never work in this place and that place, depending on text and obviously morals and stuff like that. But I can understand why he said it in the way he said it. No panic from my situation. I came out of the press conference feeling more confident than before, or let's say more happy than unhappy about Marco's and his future at the club. There's two sides to the coin. If he stays, brilliant, regardless of Europe or not. If he's fantastic. If he doesn't stay, we're a Premier League club in a very, very good position with very, very good players. I'm sure we can attract a very, very good manager. But now, we've got 3 more games with Marco. 3 more games this season, should I say? And then, of course, anything can happen. The summer's going to be huge. It feels reminiscent of 2 years ago with Marco moves away. Not much in the way of players being linked with moves away at the moment. I'm sure that will probably happen. There's obviously speculation about Kenny Tete. There's obviously speculation about Raul Jimenez and Adama Traore in terms of will they sign their 1-year trigger? Will they trigger the 1-year deal? And yeah, it's Marco. Okay, Charles Jones with a question. Marco going if you had to put money on it. Let me tell you something interesting. Bet response and stuff. I checked Sky Bet's betting market on Tuesday, and the betting market was next Premier League manager to leave because it was 100-1. Because maybe there's more likely that Postecoglou would leave the club, but because they got into the final. I don't think that's because they got into the final, but I checked a couple of days later in terms of that actual individual market, and the Sky Bet was gone. The only manager market they have on Sky Bet right now, I can double check it if you want, but was the next Manchester City manager. It was boring because Pep Guardiola signed a new contract there. So it does feel like, I don't know, I use Sky Bet in terms of when I want to a little further, but in terms of the managerial markets, and I don't read too much into it anyway, but manager specials, next permanent Manchester City manager. So I don't know. But thank you all for watching. Like I say, if you've just joined, we're going to go for probably until about 10 to 8 maybe before the playoff game. I still need to finish the quotes. I've basically done about 80% of the quotes for tonight for 10:30. Please do stay tuned for that. You can also listen to it in full on my Patreon. So it's a really good place to be. You can watch the full press conference in full pre and post match as well from today's press conference. You can make in mind. I send clips to West London Sport, who of course provide the press pass for me, and they clip up stuff that's newsy and interesting, like the stuff Silva said today. Billy Gray with another comment. Do you think he stays next season from your point of view? If you put a gun to my head right now, yeah, I think he will. I think he would. I don't. I want to. Do I want to caveat it that it depends on European football? I don't know, because there's people saying a Spurs account was like account today that Marco Silva is not first choice. Di Marzio yesterday said he was first choice. With every single bit of speculation, everything we've heard from Saudi Arabia, there's always going to be conflicting reports. I don't necessarily know whether I think Marco Silva would be interested in the Spurs job, and I think that Marco Silva, would be interested in Marco Silva, but I think that if Spurs win the Europa League, win the Champions League, do I think Marco Silva is ready to manage Champions League football? I say of bias, because obviously, I want him to stay. Obviously, I don't necessarily think that he will last long at Spurs if it wasn't to go to plan. However, he's a very good manager who can thrive in situations, and I think we've seen that. He's taken Fulham from the Championship to the Premier League stable. Can he take a team like Tottenham into Champions League and get them competing again in the Premier League? Probably, because he's shown it. He's shown that capability before, but can he do it on a larger scale? It's so hard to say. It's a game of opinions. I might say yes. Someone else might say I don't think that'd be the case. Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Good afternoon, Kevin. Good evening in London. 7:00 is the time here. And what are your thoughts over on there being an embargoed section these days for a press? It seems outdated. Look, print is losing money. There's not much money in print these days. They need their stories, they need their clicks, whether it be online, they need the eyes on papers. I don't mind it at all. I quite like it because I think I actually like it in a way because if everything was broadcast and everything was ready to go, there'd actually be so much to indulge because there's so many questions, and that's like 25, 35 minutes of quotes. It's quite overwhelming to have it separated over. Okay, today's Friday. Okay, today is Friday, so there's only going to be a Friday section. For Sunday game, like it's Friday and then Saturday sometimes. I quite like it. I have no issue with it. It gives me more to do on a Friday. Gives people more to wait for more quotes to come out. People do ask, "Oh, are these quotes held back because they have more significance?" No, they're just angled from journalists who have a different angle on a story, or want a story in a different angle. I was in my old job, I was sent to Fulham and specifically told to ask about this, whereas now I can ask basically what I want or what I think the fans will want. Hence, I ask the fans what they want to hear. Sometimes fans get things that I just will not and cannot ask, obviously. But I always have the fans' best interest at heart. That's why I'm doing this job, because I am a Fulham fan. I'm as big a Fulham fan as anyone else. I sort of, in a press conference, when you want to hear good things, I'm listening out for good things. If I hear bad things, I'll never ever forget being at post-match press conference when we just lost 3-0 to Brentford, and Marco Silva just basically coming out and saying, "Yeah, Mitrovic is off." Because in my head, I was thinking it's genuinely like worse than anything I could ever imagine happening. Obviously not, but at the time I was very upset. But at the same time, to keep a professional head, and I thought, well, that's that then, and that was it. And so, when you hear from a press conference that make you feel happy and make you feel overjoyed, or like even winning a game, you win a game and you go back in the press room, you can't be all bouncing on balls and being unprofessional because it's unprofessional. So yeah, I think I've learned to strike a good balance. Obviously, you can be frustrated. Obviously, you can be upset. The most I've been this season at a game was probably Brighton away for sure. Chelsea at home a close second, but I seem to have calmed down quicker there than I thought I would. And then, the most happy I've been at a game this season. Chelsea. Chelsea was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I mean, if I had just not an ounce of professionalism in me, I would have just been so erratic and so silly and shouting, and just would have been so stupid. But yeah, okay. There's a couple minutes coming. So yeah, to answer your question, Charles, in terms of the embargo section, I think it's needed. I think it's needed just to give the papers the chance, because I grew up reading the papers. I became a journalist, so I could. I'm not all about sensationalized sort of like you won't believe this, blah blah blah, because it's just you're just trying to generate clicks. And I know you've got to do that in the game, but I'm more wanting to state the facts and get to the point. I think Silva would be amazing at top club. Well, we're a top club, and he's been amazing. So there we go. It's playoff night tonight. Last night was a huge letdown. The referee had a shocker. Do I think it was a red card? I don't know. Obviously, you want playoffs to be competitive in both legs. Obviously, Bristol City can come back. I just don't think they will. So tonight, Sunderland is way better of a tie. Who do I want up? I want Sunderland up because Tyne-Wear Derby. It is one of the best fixtures in England, and to have it back in the top flight, especially with where Newcastle are at right now, with where Sunderland are at right now in terms of their progression under Reggie Labrie, and players that they've got like Chris Rigg and Bellingham and Isidore, really I would like to see. I would love to see Sunderland back in the Premier League. Oh, right. Okay, so in terms of the press conference today, it was very, very encouraging on some levels. I spoke with Ruben from PA afterwards, and he said, "Oh, I'm not sure about you." He said, "I thought he talked too much. I thought he said too much." And I was like, "Well, to be fair, if you're a manager who's having things said about you and you're being rumored to be at places when you're trying to focus let's strip this all back. He doesn't want this. 3 weeks ago, he basically said nothing will disturb us. Nothing will disturb us. To have all this background noise about, well, you've been linked with here, and my agent's saying that, well, me as your agent, I'm hearing that this and that they're interested. And he's going to be like, we have 3 massive, massive games against Everton, Brentford, City. I don't want to be hearing this. Once the dust settles and once we can sort out the contracts and stuff like that, and then we'll talk about our future. And like, he's had board meetings. He must have had dozens and dozens of board meetings since probably January, planning for next season. And to have, like, I'd imagine to have all this outside noise about his future, even though he's contracted at the club. So that in terms of that on paper just means that he's going to be here next season. Must be a massive distraction. And I know that he won't let that distract him. It's not going to influence preparation. It's not going to influence the players or results or performances on the pitch. But just to have it in the back of your mind as like, oh God, all this chat about me, and I have to face it in the press conference, because what will happen is not the different people who was at the pre-match will be at the post, who will ask again about it and have to say the same thing. And that'll happen for another 3 times this season because there's 3 more games. It's incredibly annoying. It's incredibly distracting. I can imagine, but he's dealing with it fairly well. Most of the issues that have arose this season, whether it be refereeing, Pereira's little saga at Tottenham away, he's dealt with it very, very well. Feedback I've seen from fans on Twitter about what Silva says, and sometimes he does repeat himself a lot in terms of when we lose a game, says we're the best team on the pitch. Like, yeah, I understand, get frustrating. And me as a journalist, I don't take much pleasure in tapping up those certain quotes, knowing exactly what the reaction is going to be. But you got to report what he said, otherwise it's not being fair on the fans. It's amazing, isn't it? We've had such an incredible rise for the last 4 years, and yet fans always want more. And this is what I said on the radio last night on TalkSport. This is what I said to an Everton fan when we previewed the game. This is what I've said on my Patreon all week about perspective and fans demand more in a shorter space of time. We're actually in a very unique situation. We've had a manager for 4 years. I can't name many team whole 2 who have had a manager last this long. Obviously Harrogate Town, and some obviously Thomas Frank. I'm trying to name the top of my head, but manager churn in the game is so common, and yet we're still probably going to come out of this season going, well, we should have got Europe. Well, we should have done better. Well, we should have. 100% agree. Games where we've thrown away, West Ham away, West Ham at home, Everton away, even West Ham away, we literally gave them the goals. Chelsea at home, games where we've dropped points positions. I absolutely 100% agree. We should be higher in the table. We should have more points. Silva said that. And of course, there will be massive disappointment, especially at the expense of Brentford getting in, God forbid. Bournemouth, I think, have been fantastic. Brighton have been pretty decent. If they win the FA Cup, then fair play. They've beaten everyone to get there, and they've beaten Man City in the final. There's nothing we can do about that, albeit we should have made better again. But if you just take a step back and maybe a week after the season's finished and you're not getting Europe, and you go, okay, well, we've got to take a step back and go, what an amazing job he's done in terms of we literally got promoted under Silva. And what was the first reaction of everyone? I'll go straight back down. Like I've just said about Burnley this week, I'm sure people have said about Burnley. If Sheffield might come back up, everyone's going to go snoring hell. That's so boring. They'll go straight back down. The narrative is from people who just don't give it a moment's thought. Just go, they'll go straight back down because to be fair, there's enough to back up within the last 2 seasons of 6 teams coming up and then going straight back down in the last 2 seasons. It's easy to then brush it off. So when Fulham came, even under Marco, when Fulham came up, even under Silva, especially probably under Silva, because it was the yo-yo, people were like, oh, they'll go straight back down. And we didn't. We finished top half. We got 53 points, and we were unbelievable. And then it's okay, well, can we maintain that? And we finished 13th. We finished last season. Brilliant. Got to a Carabao Cup semi-final, FA Cup quarter-final in the first season. This season, FA Cup quarter-final. Where do we come in the Carabao? Oh, we lost to Preston. Yeah, just doing insanely well. Just doing insanely well. Beating big teams, beating Chelsea. 4 points out of Liverpool, who have been the best team in the league. Sorry, every time Joe Sansom sends me a tweet, I get really giddy because it's always something interesting. So yeah, like take a step back. Yeah, of course, everyone's gonna be disappointed if we don't get Europe. I want to get into Europe for like the adventure of it all. It'd be so fun to cover Fulham abroad and home and away. Like, imagine being like Slovenia on a Thursday and then being like, we got to fly to Newcastle for the Newcastle away game on the Sunday. Like, it'd just be so fun, so busy, so chaotic. It'd be amazing. If we don't get it, I can also, that comes into the argument, Silva taking them up as far as he possibly can with the budget, with the backing, perhaps. But also, can we go one more? Can we go again? Every single team, let's look at the Premier League table. Every single team is going to improve. Okay? West Ham will improve. Okay, kudos. Bowen might be of interest to Tottenham or to Liverpool. They'll still have a lot of money to play with. They let go of Fabianski and Soufal. Interesting. I would take Fabianski as a backup to Leno. Easy. I would take Soufal. Well, actually, would I take Soufal? Perhaps he was linked with Fulham on deadline day. He was actually like not close to joining Fulham. We wanted to try and sign him on deadline day, but he was playing against Chelsea, so it made it 10 times difficult. Tottenham and United, depending on who's in charge of Tottenham, whether it be Ange, whether it be anyone else, they will get better. United will probably get better. I mean, it's easy to say this now, and in a year's time we'll say, well, that didn't happen, but you would imagine they would get better, is a way to say it. Everton, new stadium, you would imagine with the new ownership, they would get better. Wolves are going to lose Cunha, but they'll have a lot of money to play with a really good manager, really good squad. They will get better. Palace, Glasner, they can keep hold of him because he's interest from Leipzig. If they lose Eze, they lose Mateta, but you know what Palace are like? They churn out some really good players. They recruit fairly well. That I'd imagine they might get better. It could be one of those ones where if they lose Glasner, then maybe we could see a drop, but you just never know who they can attract in. Brentford will lose Mbuemo, but I'm sure they'll invest very well and they'll probably be as good, if not better. Bournemouth under Iriola, the sky's the limit. Aston Villa, incredible investment, incredible manager, great squad. They will get better. Forest, I don't know, might dip, but you see what I mean. And then we're going to the Newcastle, City, Arsenal, Liverpool. There's so much to play. There's so much money to play with in the summer for these teams in these positions in the Premier League. That every single team is going to improve. Hence, Marco Silva always says we cannot stand still because look at the competition around us. It just so happens that I don't think we've got the best squad ever. I don't think we have the best players ever, but I think we have a good core and a good work rate and a good manager, and that's able to do really, really well and should be higher. So yeah, that's my thoughts on everything Fulham. I'm worried that if we don't get so it's like a snowball effect. If it feels like he's not going to be back properly in the summer, I could understand his head being turned. If he is backed, but we're so slow in making progress in terms of business, which has happened before, I can understand him getting impatient. He said how important pre-season is next season, where he needs players right from the off pre-season. We already know Castagna is going to be out for 7 to 10 days pre-season. There could be some youngsters involved in pre-season. But I just think that there's an awful lot of work to do. Kenny Tete, whoever's going to sign new contracts, like retain and release needs to be within a week of the season ending. We need to know who's staying and who's going. And then, of course, you go from there. And I'm thinking of Fed because only 3 games to go. It's going to go like that. Let's talk about tomorrow's game. Fulham winning would take us to 54 points. That would take us 1 point, who play at 5:30 against Aston Villa. Brentford, Brighton, Brentford away Ipswich, who against Everton's come back. I don't know if that's not their last home game, is it? But they'll want to play for pride. Their season is dwindled and obviously relegated. Disappointing. Brighton away at Wolves is really tough for Brighton. who I don't think were that convincing against Newcastle last week. Wolves, despite losing to City last week, won 6 in a row, and they're really looking in good shape. So I'd expect to really try and do us a favour. It's annoying because we've got to do a job and we've got to rely on other teams to do us favours or to drop points, and it's obviously not a nice position to be in. 2 out of the next 3, which will take us to 57 points, puts us in a very good position, a very, very good position indeed into Europe. I think it's still up for grabs. Hosting a Man City team who might just be coming off the high of winning the FA Cup, or might be coming off the losing the FA Cup, and then obviously suddenly, if they've lost to Palace, then obviously things change. But yeah, it's an incredibly tense time. Some disappointing, 1-0 defeats to Villa, 1-0 defeat to Bournemouth, just incredibly frustrating in the way we've conceded those goals. We haven't drawn at home, and that was, I think, the 5th of January of this year. It's just been win loss basically. We haven't won 2 in a row since, I want to say, when we beat Forest and Newcastle back to back, and Wigan in between that as well. I'm wrong in saying that. I think that could be the correct. Yeah, so it's been really hard to gather a run of form. We beat Wolves and then beat United, but that was obviously in the cup. Yeah, it's just inconsistency in the second half of the season. Win one, lose one. And that's why the hokey-cokey nature of this second half of the season has been so confusing. At one point, you're thinking, this is so on. And then we go and lose a game, and you're thinking, I'm not sure. And now we're in a state where it's sort of out of our hands, unless results were to take a massive swing tomorrow. This time tomorrow, we could be on 54 points. Bournemouth could have lost. Brentford could have maybe drawn, and Brighton could have drawn. And suddenly we are leading the pack with 2 to go, and it would be in our hands. And then we go to Brentford. I'm dreading it. I've never dreaded a game more than Brentford away, just because of all the permutations that could happen. Not only beating us and singing "Hey Jude" until the cows come home, but then overtaking us and still being in a chance of Europe. On the flip side, if we win that, boy, that would be some do down at the G-Tech. That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much. I think, what's the time, Mr. Wolf? It's only 7:20. I thought I'd be rattling on for much longer. I don't know how many people are watching on YouTube, given that there's only been a few comments from YouTube. Maybe most people are watching on Twitter, which is obviously a place to be. Do subscribe to the YouTube, because there will be more content to come. I know I've put it on the back burner. I just want to get through this season, end it, and then suddenly the YouTube's going to pick up. Like I say, live streams. There's so much discussion points and released. The futures of players, transfers, new kits, all that stuff. I'm going to try and most likely going to be out in pre-season, hopefully this summer, covering the team again. I've got a couple of things I need to be here for, wedding and stuff like that. So I'm going to try my best to be at most of the first team games in pre-season. And that's the thing, we don't know where we're going to be. Usually you have some sort of idea of where pre-season might be this time of year, but because we don't know if we're going to be in Europe, because we don't know who our manager is going to be, hopefully it's going to be Marco Silva. There was clear signs today that he could be the manager, and we will see. Manager's going to be, hopefully it's going to be Marco Silva. Checking the connection, because it's giving me one bar here. Someone's just messaged me saying that they think the game tomorrow's going to be really predictable, and that Everton are going to sit deep, and we're going to try to break them down. I think that, yes, that could be a thing, but also, because it's the end of the season, because Everton have been on a really poor run, because their fans will want them to show a little bit more, I think that's it'd be easy to say that Everton were clinging on for their Premier League lives, but they're not. They're safe, they're fine, they're staying up. It then might prove, and it might give the opportunity for the game to open up a little bit more. And if the game opens up a little bit more, I think that's going to be better for Fulham. to put them off. Obviously, then we're going to have to defend our box very, very well. But then when the chance comes to counter-attack through Sess on the right or Wobie on the left or whoever it's going to be, Dharma, could be Wilson, could be Smith-Rowe, could be Pereira, who's back. Obviously, no Lukic, no Reed, no Nelson, no Munish, which is obviously disappointing. But there are opportunities for Fulham to counter-attack and to... And look, I think we'll create chances. I hope it's more of an open game. I know what Moyes is like. I don't think he's just going to be like, oh, just because we've got nothing to play for, we're going to open up and make it a really ding-dong of a game. I think there's some structure and obviously they'll want to stay in their shape. It would make sense if the game was just that little bit more open because Everton had nothing riding on it in terms of they'll want to just give their fans something to cheer about. And I think if they sit in a low block for 90 minutes and come away with a poor result or come away with a point, I don't think the fans will accept that from their side. But then again, Moyes is not here. I don't know if Moyes is going to necessarily listen to the fans and then open up a little. We'll just see. But I see what the guy who's messaged me is saying. It could be quite predictable. Fulham might have a lot of territory in the final third, a lot of passing. Obviously, I wasn't at the game last week, but from what I saw, it was very, very frustrating. FFC Perry, after speaking to Silva today, are you confident he'll stay? Is his body language, is he easy to read in person? It's tough. It's tough to read someone's body language. I think that he's happy here. I think he's happy. He's happy in England. He said that. He said he's happy in the Premier League. He's happy living in England. I would like to think he's going to honour his contract. I'd like to think he's going to honour his contract. And then with that, you honour your contract, you go into your final year. And then there's a conversation to be had, well, let's extend this. Let's keep this going. There's an element of risk because I don't think he'll want to go to Saudi Arabia because I just don't think that, obviously the money is hugely tantalising, but because he turned it down 2 years ago, what's really, if anything, the Saudi Pro League got less tantalising than it was 2 years ago when they were signing all these players. Now, I just don't think many people care about the Saudi Pro League as much. The only thing that's maybe quite tempting is to be a manager in the first ever Club World Cup. That'll be in 3 or 4 weeks in the summer, and then you're back to domestic issues, and then it just feels a bit. Yeah, that's my opinion. I can't remember what point I was going to make. I can't remember the point I was going to make. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Oh yeah, the risk of going to somewhere like Spurs. The risk of going to somewhere like Spurs is your manager, your stock as a manager could be so high, it is with Fulham. And then in a year's time, if it doesn't work out at Spurs, if you go out of the European competition or you go out of the Cups, and the fans are like, well, this is not good enough, we want to change it. Because the scrutiny is so much bigger at bigger clubs, the patience is going to be less. Levies and the stadium and the training ground, the expectations and the players and the money, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be hung out to dry by all the fans, and the pressure's going to be on. Do I think there's massive, massive, massive pressure on him at Fulham to succeed? No, not really. I mean, obviously, the fans want things like Europe, and fans want things like cup runs. Fans want things like success. I see Silva going to Spurs, like at Chelsea, and it's easy to say that. It's easy to say that it could be like a rabbit in the headlight situation. I do think Silva is good enough to adapt and make it work. Players like Richarlison, like he's got tune out of him before at Everton. He can get the best out of players. We've seen. If he stays at Fulham, he'll be loved. He'll be almost like legendary status, and it's not out of the realms of possibility that if Fulham don't get Europe season, we can't next season. If we don't stand still, like he said, if we invest and we add to the squad and we improve where we need to improve, there's a chance because we've got really good foundation. The way we play, just everything about the club is moving in the right direction. Stand everything like that. I can't like envisage a new manager, and that's because obviously since I've started this job and since I've started working, I've known as Marco Silva at the helm at Fulham. I can't envisage a new manager and having to type up quotes for a new manager and having to speak to a new manager. Obviously, I can't envision that because I'm so used to Marco. But that's has no weight on anything whatsoever. That's just me being silly. 300 people watching. Thank you very much. I know it is playoff time. You're probably thinking, boy, it's done so we can watch Coventry versus Sunderland. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Playoffs is my favourite football. Playoffs my favourite footballing time of the year. It's absolutely wonderful. We've seen us win it twice. I actually hate the playoffs when we're in it. Obviously, it's great to win it, but in terms of the Derby away game, horrible. Derby at home game, one of the best nights of my life for sure. I don't hate it. I just prefer to watch it as a neutral. One of my favourite games as a neutral was watching Leeds lose the playoff semi-final against Derby. That was fantastic. It was just so funny. Okay, one player we would love Fulham to sign. It's going to have to be Ivanovic, and I'm saying that because he look at this. He celebrates like Mitro. Milhalo Ivanovic from Millwall. And obviously everyone's going to be like, who the hell is that? Like, if you watch the Championship, you'll know that he's obviously like really potent. He's a really dangerous striker, reminds you of Mitrovic a lot. It would just be great to have someone like that at the club. It'd be very reminiscent of Mitrovic. I think people, as much as they hate to admit it, people will probably want Mitrovic back at the club because it brought them some incredible times. I think that ship has obviously sailed, but to have a Serbian striker at the helm at Fulham again, leading the line, I think Muniz will lead the line season, but to have a backup and a young striker like Ivanovic would be amazing. I really would like to sign him. I don't think he would cost that much. I think maybe Millwall Premier League club, as in Millwall to sell to a Premier League club, they'll probably want a big fee, probably like 4 or 5 million. I think that would be okay. He's exciting and he's one for the future. And talking of players for the future, Osman training with the first team this week. There may or may not be some Osman chat in embargoed section. We shall see. And yeah, the injuries might give an opportunity to a bit of Josh King on the bench tomorrow, maybe, which would be great. King needs more minutes. There's no question about it. He needs more minutes. Whether that be on loan, whether that be the first team, he's obviously good enough to play Premier League football. It's just a shame that you have to have that balance between we want to play the youth and watch the youth thrive, but or do we want to play more senior players who have more experience, who have a better chance of maybe getting a result from the game? I don't know. Yeah, this has been fun. So in terms of live streams and stuff, from probably like, there's obviously that weird period where like nothing really happens, but after the season it finishes, there's going to be stuff to talk about like Kenny Tete. There's going to be stuff to talk about like Marco Silva. There's going to be lots. So we're going to be live on Twitter, on YouTube, and obviously that will time Patreon as well. Guys, subscribing to the Patreon will be a great decision for you in terms of seeing loads of stuff you just don't normally see in the Fulham space, and to have that access, to have that opportunity to cover the club brings opportunity to see and do things that for me has just been unbelievable. I can't quite believe the position I'm in. Speaking to Marco Silva on a weekly basis is a huge privilege and an honour, and I cannot thank anyone. I can't thank everyone enough for the support I've had on Patreon this season, on Twitter this season. Just people coming up to me or chatting to me in like a game or in an away end, if I'm in an away end, and it's just unbelievable to be able to represent the fans. Club I literally would die for. So it's a fantastic job to have, and I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in. I just want to continue doing it next season. I want to do it on a bigger and larger scale. I want to be braver, asking braver questions, asking for braver insight, asking for braver interviews with players and staff members and stuff like that. I want to be bigger and better. I'm growing in confidence. I'm not growing in stature or size or height, but I'm growing in confidence, and hopefully can represent the club in the best way possible. And when I say braver in terms, there are difficult questions you need to ask at times, and most of that is ask about ticket prices and ask about away fans in home areas and stuff like that. And obviously, there's a time and a place to do that. But when I talk about braver, I want to be like on pitch questions that are a little bit more challenging, a little bit more. I don't want to say critical, because the reason I'm saying this is because I watched an interview with the Norwich chief executive Ben Napper earlier, and Lincoln were there talking to Ben Napper. Basically, Norwich have just sacked their manager. There's a lot of anger and questions at the door of Napper because of the project, and it didn't quite work out for Norwich this season. And the guy asking the questions from the Pinken, who are like a paper that very much focus on just covering Norwich, they asked some really tough questions. And I was I wasn't blown away because I was used to listening to things like this, but I was sort of like, wow, there were some punchy questions. But the good thing is that because Fulham are doing very well pitch, it's very rare that I need to ask a difficult question. But if you never know what happens in football, and if there are difficult questions to ask about on the pitch stuff, off the pitch stuff, and they will be asked. And obviously there are enough outlets on Twitter. There's enough Fulham outlets who care about the FST, the podcasts and stuff like that. That there are enough people who have those concerns and stuff like that. And for me, I'm focusing on building a good relationship with the club, and trying my best to represent the base as best as possible, with the manager, with the players. Under 21s, that's not going to stop next season. I want to do more under 18s next season as well, which will be cool, because I think the under 21s are important, but the under 18s are just as important with development. Obviously, it's really under usually play Saturdays, and obviously that just clashes with the first team. So the likelihood is that I probably won't be able to see as much under 18s as next season. But stuff like the FA Youth Cup is obviously very, very important. But yeah, this has been really fun. Don't necessarily think we're done yet, but I suppose I should probably finish those quotes before the Coventry game. Yeah, so if you would like to, oh god, yeah, my laptop is now down to 10%. This laptop is not very good in terms of its battery life. But I must plug the Patreon. Go. It's something that I've worked on all season and will continue to do over the summer. You guys have probably heard me bang on about it enough, but the reason I do it is because I think more Fulham fans should subscribe, and I feel like more Fulham fans would benefit from subscribing. It's only $5 a month. You get daily Fulham content. I am changing things slightly for next season. I don't necessarily think we'll have daily content, but we're going to have higher quality of content, so it doesn't become so, I wouldn't say repetitive, but the weekly structure is quite structured, and I kind of want to break that structure a little bit and give you guys more interesting content out and about, talking to people and stuff like that. But do subscribe. It really is a fantastic way to follow Fulham. You get to see press conferences, you get to see interviews with players, you get to see reviews. People are interested in this thing, behind the scenes stuff that you won't normally see, and it's a really good platform. We've got a really good community there, and I'm happy with how many subscribers I've got, but I know I could do better. I know I can do better, and I'm just keep bugging it. So I know you guys will probably be like, oh god, he's talking about it again. If you want to just get on board and support me, I know it's a tough situation where you've got to basically, you're asking for people to put their money in you and their trust in you for $5 a month, which I think is reasonably priced, because you're paying. You'd be rare to find a pub which is selling a pint for $5 these days in London, especially in West London around Fulham on a match day. So for that £5 a month, or $6 or $5.50, whatever it is, you're basically getting a lot of Fulham content that you can't see on Twitter, that you won't see on Twitter, and that's why it's really great place. And with pre-season, goodness me, it's like the best pre-season. Last season pre-season was genuinely one of the best experiences of my life. It was so fun to be out there talking to the players, talking to fans, being at the games, and all of that is going to be on Patreon. And because I was new to Patreon, I wasn't quite sure what to do for pre-season. Now I have a clear idea of what pre-season is going to look like on Patreon, and that coincides with live streams that I want to do more, because it helps reach a larger audiences. It helps create conversation. It helps generate hopefully subscribers, and not only on Patreon but on YouTube as well. So I really want to thank everyone for being here to this evening. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy the game tomorrow. I'll probably stream on Twitter before the game. I usually do a little 10-minute pre-match thoughts from the Johnny Haynes stand. Then we'll be at GTech, and then we'll be on the final day of the season. Cannot wait for it. The link to my Patreon is in my Twitter bio, also in my Instagram bio as well, all under the same name and username. Thank you so much for watching. 45 minutes of Fulham chatter. And to conclude, great press conference. Marco Silva was pretty upfront, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Patreon, and thank you so much. Come on, Fulham. We'll see you tomorrow at Craven Cottage.